Welcome to the Maasto Fitness podcast. Today, in episode 16, we are going to talk about consistency. So, this is a quick hit podcast where we keep them short and to the point, focusing on the things you can do off the bike to race faster and safer. At Maasto Fitness, we work with racers remotely in the real world. Many have a life full of commitments and don't have a lot of time to train off the bike or to ride. We provide training off the bike, so days on the bike, whether riding or racing, are faster and safer. So like I said, today we are going to talk about consistency. And simply put, consistency is the key to performance. Without being consistent, we can't build fitness. And if we can't build fitness, we can't build performance. We've got to take it brick by brick and build it piece by piece. We can't expect a lot from just doing a ton of work at once and then taking 4, 5, 6 days off and then doing a lot of work at once and then taking 4, 5, 6 days off. Two issues with that before we even dive into it is one, more than likely, if you're going really hard and then you need those days off because you need to recover, essentially, you're doing something really big, extreme in terms of training load for your body, and then you need days off to recover. So we're definitely not building fitness that way. And we're not really building the best body, which we're going to go into here a little bit deeper. We want to be able to train consistently, day in, day out. Those little pieces, one after another, are going to pay off a lot more for your fitness, your health, and your performance than just going really hard and then taking multiple days off. So let's go ahead and dive into it. Why we need to train consistently to get the best out of our body. So first is progression and improvement, essentially adaptation. The body adapts to stressors placed on it. And then through regular exercise and consistent workouts, the body's able to progressively build strength, endurance, and flexibility. So if you think about this, you can think of just kind of like anything you've probably ever been good at. You haven't just done it once and been good at it. For example, dirt biking, racing, riding, whatever type or level of racer you are, you didn't get there just by doing it here and there and then magically got better. It took time and consistency. We think about years of riding compiled on year after year after year, whether you race motocross, woods, you're a trail rider or a casual racer. Those skills didn't just magically develop overnight. And that's the same deal with aerobic training and strength training and flexibility. It takes really that consistency over time to build the skill. Our body can't learn something overnight. If you maybe heard me say this before about like test, if you've ever tried to just study for a test real quick and then like study the night before or the morning of and then take it, probably wasn't successful. If you built up that learning over time, worked on it consistently, you'll probably find that you were much better with the material, you understood it much better. Or in your career, probably what you specialize in, what you do every day, isn't something that you could just learn in a minute or in a day or in a week. It took years, possibly, of expertise for you to be able to do it and do it well. So fitness is the same way. We really just want to build through that consistent training over time. Now, next is skill development. So regular practice is essential for any skill improvement. Consistency allows us to refine the techniques, and that's weightlifting, running, cycling, rowing, strength training. I might have said strength training there twice, but whatever type of activity you're doing, we got to develop the skills. So one thing you'll see if you're a Maasto racer or if you want to try Maasto out, we start off with a lot of stuff that's kind of like body weight, going through motions, not necessarily stacking a ton of weight. Because when you're starting out, we need to develop the skill. We can't add a bunch of weight before we actually know how to go through the movement properly and how to take our body through the motions correctly. And that skill development progresses over time. Our body gets used to the movements, our body understands where to go, we work on form and technique, and we get better. And just training here and there, you're not going to get that out of your body. I'm sure we can all think of an example of when maybe we were newer on the bike. If you're a more experienced rider, you've been racing for years, you're kind of newer on the bike, and maybe you hop on a bigger bike and try to ride it. It was like, whoa, I feel like out of control and wild. I remember for me when I was a teenager and I got a chance to ride a 450, and I was racing a 125 at the time. I think I was 15 or 16, and it was like that 450. It was just like way too much. I hadn't developed the skills to be able to do things that quickly or definitely hold onto a bike at the rate of speed at which it could corner which in my naiveness thought I could just go out and just rip around on it like no other. So that skill development is really important for our aerobic fitness, something we just need to always be working on to make us stronger and healthier, and then able to race faster and safer. Now, next, habit routine. This is a big one with consistency. Consistency helps us build habits. When exercise becomes part of your daily or weekly routine, it's easier to stick with it long term. So, for example, for me, I'm personally an AM workout guy. I prefer to work out in the morning because, one, that's before the day gets out of control, before there's a million things going on with family, with work, and I can control a lot if I start working out at about 5:30, 5:45. I get up at 5, it's supposed to be 5:30. It's never quite 5:30, it always takes me a little longer. But side note, always getting my sessions done in the morning, because if I wait till 6, 7, 8 at night, one of two things is going to happen. One, I'm probably work or something else has come up, and I'm probably not going to get that session in, so I'm not going to be consistent because I'm going to end up having to skip it. Or two, the much more likely scenario, in the few times that I don't train in the morning and try to do it later in the day, I'm just too tired. I'm just too worn out after being up for 14 hours, and it just sounds a lot better to usually just go to bed than try to get a late night session in. So that habit formation is big with consistency. Just get your body in the routine of doing the sessions at the same time every day if your schedule allows it and you can control it. And you'll start to find that those habits, it just becomes an automatic thing. You're going to get up, you're going to do this session, whatever's planned, and then get on with your day. Now, with that also comes motivation. Establishing a routine reduces reduces the reliance on daily motivation. Once exercise becomes a habit, it's less of like a mental effort to maintain. It just feels routine and something to do. And I know me, in my early days of training, we're talking when I was starting to train more seriously, take it more seriously, not just be a casual exerciser about 15 years ago. I really struggled with motivation. Like, it just didn't sound worth it. Not something I wanted to do. And then I would have a poor race, have a crappy day. And I knew exactly what I did. I missed a lot of training because I just wasn't motivated. So I know now, forward here, 15 years, that motivation, that's not really an issue for me anymore because training is part of my life. It's something I do every day. And I always have a goal in mind. I want to just be able to do XYZ race. I want to be able to finish XYZ place at a race. So the motivation becomes less of a thing when you have a consistent routine and you just have a habit in place to get you to where you need to be, and just putting that work in, like I keep saying, day in and day out, because it makes such a big difference. Now, the next thing with consistent training is we're going to avoid plateaus. Consistent training is a good way to establish structure. So at Maasto Fitness, our racers have a structure. We use periodization. So we do a couple weeks of building, recover, a couple weeks of building, recover. Now, when races are placed, things like that, that periodization does get changed up a little bit. But in general, we're adding stressors and we're reducing them. So with consistent training, we're able to properly build fitness and avoid plateaus, because with the consistency, I as a coach can predict, the racer can predict their workload. And then we know when it's time to back off, when it's time to build, when it's time to back off. And through that progressive overload, the body adapts to training much better. When you're just throwing random stuff at the board, doing a hard workout here, a hard workout there, taking a couple of days off, doing another hard workout, your body's not going to adapt. And more than likely, you're going to be training in the wrong spot, kind of gray zoning it, which is something I talk about in a couple other podcasts. If you go back further, where I talk about heart rate training and I talk about just the factors with training, I go a little bit deeper into that. But essentially, we're able to just gradually increase fitness at a proper rate that's going to reduce the chance of injury. And definitely, we're going to avoid plateauing because we're using the correct scientific methods to keep the racer healthy and progressing. And then also with consistency, we can predict a lot more. It's easier to monitor progress. It's easier to compare past sessions to current sessions, because when we're training consistently, we start to kind of understand our body. We know what we're capable of. We know what kind of our limit is. And then you can look, oh, I did this here. I can probably do this here. Maybe in the future I could do this, but when it's just a bunch of random training, it's very hard to predict your fitness and your performance. And we're talking on the bike or off the bike there, really. That consistency pays off huge. And I kind of already touched on this, Injury prevention. This is probably one of the most important ones. You're really going to reduce your chance of injury when you're consistently training, because we're doing that gradual adaptation of the body. Like I said earlier, throwing a really hard stressor, then needing days to recover, then a really hard stressor is not a great way to adapt the body and not a great way to stay healthy. Instead, just having that balanced, progressive approach to training is going to greatly reduce the chance of injury, because we're building everything up at a rate that's acceptable for the body. And we're talking cardiovascular, muscles, tendons, ligaments, everything in your body. We're not going to go out, for example, and bike 100 miles on day one, or 50 miles or whatever the number may be. We're going to build up to that over months. And that's a great way to keep you healthy and to keep you safe. Because our goal at Maasto Fitness, and your goal really should be, if you're training off the bike, is what can you do to stay healthy so you're able to race faster, have better races, be safer, and reduce the chance of setback. And that setback can happen in a crash racing. That's always a bummer when that happens. Through flexibility and mobility work, you can definitely reduce that a little bit. But even worse, I would hate to see, is an injury through training off the bike. And a lot of times that happens with just going too hard, too soon, or not knowing your body. So that consistent training, gradual increase is going to definitely help keep you healthy and greatly reduce your chance of injury. So those are kind of the main things about consistency. There's a lot that plays into it, but the more consistent you are, the more our training is going to be predictable. And when we progress and we overload and recover, we're going to reduce the chance of injury. Training is going to feel more routine, so it doesn't feel so forced, or you feel like you really need a lot of motivation, because it's just going to be part of your life, and it's going to just help you continue to progress and race faster and safer. And like I keep saying, that's our goal at Maasto Fitness: faster and safer racing through off the bike training. So that's all I've got for you today. Next week, we're going to talk about pre-cooling, essentially what you can do on those really hot days racing. And as always, at Maasto Fitness, we build strength, endurance, and mobility work for racers. We have tons of hydration and nutrition guides as well, plus a monthly call where any racer in any of our program can hop on and ask me questions. So if that's something you want to give a try, can hook you up with a free week of our single jump training program. Just send me a message on Instagram and I'll get you rolling.